Episode 88, Personal Growth Through Acquaintances.
You're listening to the very best podcast in the world on health, wealth, and happiness. Please remember to leave a review and share with all your friends and family. And here is your host, Lars Hilser.
Welcome, friends. Welcome to the very best podcast in the world, your source, the only one in the universe for personal supremacy through health, wealth, and happiness. God, geez. I still get the chuckles when go back to where this journey began 88 episodes ago and many, many moons ago, that it was just supposed to be, supposed to turn out to be this daily persiflage of all of these guys out there, these gurus trying to rip you off and, get you into expensive programs and so on and so forth. And now it has, for a lot of subscribers, become an institution of positivity and, some one or the other enlightening experiences they've had. And, it's just insane the amount of email feedback that comes in. And, just a very positive thing. It turned out to be what was, supposed to be merely a sarcastic or satirical enterprise. Anyhow, I came across this, one of these motivational billboards on the intertubes the other day, where it said, become friends with people who aren't your age, hang out with people whose first language isn't the same as yours, get to know someone who doesn't come from your social class. This is how you see the world. This is how you grow. And for the longest part of my life, all of these things have been true. And I've learned so much from so many different cultures, first of all, that shaped me and gave me or gifted me with a significant amount of tolerance, even towards the biggest bullshitters that I came across in the world. It made me much more, I wouldn't say emotionally stable, because that would imply that I was emotionally unstable before. But, it was like once you start to learn to, take it easy and that things will kind of figure themselves out, and you learn this from, the old folks, then, you kind of take this chilliness into your life and share it with others subconsciously. And then, your entire surrounding is just chill. That's really fascinating, the impact you can have on people when you are this, I don't want to say educated, but let's call it enlightened personality, right? You've seen large parts of the world. You are capable of talking to other social classes, and you know how to behave on the different dance floors of life that are out there. You are receptive when it comes to speaking with people who are outside of your age group, if there is such a thing, actually. I kind of got rid of that concept very early in my life. I don't know why, but it was just kind of natural. And so let's dig into it, right? Let's take this motivational billboard, there's no better term that I came up with, apart and see, where the benefits are. So, Paul from Alabama, if you're listening, the first part is become friends with people who aren't your age. And when I lived in the United States, across the street lived this older gentleman who became a friend slash advisor slash mentor. What we would do is, I don't know, I was 10 or something. And I think it was every Saturday, we would go for an extensive walk around, the neighborhood, and we would pick cans, and take this big junk sack, because there was one US cent that the aluminum recycler would give you per can. And, I would take my BB gun, which, obviously everybody had to have. I think I still have it even. And, we would pick these cans, and the goal was to pick enough cans to get a new BB gun, because the one I had was worn and torn, and it was just a different one that I wanted. And so he came up with the idea, and we exchanged very, very, very meaningful conversations pretty much every week. And it became this kind of ritual that was insanely interesting. And it wasn't only that I learned from him, it was also that he learned from me. So it was like this intergenerational exchange of knowledge that took place every Saturday, and it was just insanely enlightening. Another example was our next door neighbor, who was our school bus driver. And he was in the military, as well as pretty much everyone that lived in that town was. And he was a photographer for the U.S. Army, and one of the first ones to touch or to take photographs of the annihilation that had taken place in Hiroshima. And so I created this science project that was, this big, it was about nuclear bombs, essentially. And my dad and I created this diorama kind of setup with this big mushroom cloud. And so it looked, it was actually pretty cool. I can even visualize it now with the colors and everything. So what we did was, he still had some of the photographs, obviously the unclassified ones, and we scanned them and reprinted them and kind of put them as, with footnotes on this, as part of the background in this diorama, to, give a visual representation of what, how shitty nuclear weapons are. And also, getting this feedback from that guy, getting the emotions, getting the first-hand experience was something insanely valuable, right? And for him and the other neighbor I mentioned, it was just insanely enriching to talk to a kid that, came from a totally different country that they'd never been to, and get input from a totally different culture as well. It was, there was always the language barrier, of course, but we took English as a language to communicate in. And, my English had, due to the fact that I was in school there, been quite good, even at the beginning of our school career, for many different reasons. And so these interesting relationships grew. And yeah, it was just very, very, very interesting and enlightening to speak with these folks and to exchange. And, with this thing moving forward, what we're seeing now is actually in a lot of European countries, we're seeing kind of these multi-generational housing projects which are developing, where, for instance, I was in one and talked to some of the folks there, where the older folks said, yeah, okay, we allow we want to have the little kids of the working generation around us, because, of their agility and their energy, which kind of makes us more energetic and doesn't make us into these, recliner sitting hags. That was actually one of the words that one of the people, that one of the older guys used there. I was like, I don't want to be this guy sitting in a recliner all day shouting at the children. I want to learn from the kids. I want to get their energy. I want to get their motivation and the sparkle in their eyes if they discover something new. And if we, with our experience, can contribute to these, to the information being conveyed and history being relayed, so that shit that, is preventable because in history it's gone down a long road. If we can, kind of transport that information into these kids of these people who are busy with their careers and everything is done and everything is well. The parents that were working were obviously very and insanely grateful because, they didn't have to get state-run daycare or whatever for their kids because the elderlies would look after them. And so this really interesting environment started to happen where everybody was exchanging ideas and everybody was sharing meals and, everybody was looking after each other. And this ecosystem was just very, very impressive to witness. And, so I think if you are one of the people who still believes that there is such thing as quote unquote age groups, get rid of that. It's just, there is no such thing, really. Try it out. Trust me, I've been there. So next part was, hang out with people whose first language isn't the same as yours. And I already touched briefly on that in the previous segment where I said, inevitably somebody that speaks a different language, that has a different first language, comes from a different culture. And this different culture, is going to give you a lot of insights into how to live differently, maybe how to live better. How can you improve something perhaps in your community that this person brings, that this person has lived through and was exposed to. Is there something that we can learn from each other? Obviously the first language person is going to be the one who's going to explain the culture that they're currently living in. But, taking into account that there are other things out there makes this interchange very much worthwhile. I suggested a program when we had the refugee crisis in Europe, where I said, why is it that all of these refugees just have to learn German, right? Why is it not so that, those people teach us also a bit of Arabic? They maybe teach us a little bit of Pashto or Urdu or whatever the language is that they're that they grew up with. It doesn't have to be a one-way street. Yeah, sure. I get the point of all of this non-nationalistic nationalist talk about, yeah, but they want to live here, so they have to, yeah, get it. Totally. That's not what I'm saying. It's like, you non-nationalistic nationalist Karen types, might as well learn a little bit to broaden your horizon about the culture that currently came in, and perhaps you're going to understand some of the problems that these people are experiencing and why, they're building ghettos and living only amongst each other and don't want to have anything to do with you ignorant bastards. Rant over. Seriously though, nothing is more enriching than learning something about different cultures because, let's face it, when you go to Turkey on vacation or to Mexico, to Cancun on vacation, to shoot your brains out with cheap tequila and everything, or whatever it is that suits your fancy, you're not going to learn anything about the culture of Mexico or Turkey or, wherever you go to get cheap booze and cheap hookers and to get laid. You're not going to learn anything, period. And getting inspired by different cultures has, not only from my experience, been so enriching to my life and to that of many others that, I share these experiences with the aforementioned sparkle in my eyes. It's just so interesting to learn from different people and to broaden your horizon and to get out of that ghetto that your mind is in, that, the world you live in is perfect and all others are inferior. No, it doesn't work like that. Seriously, try it out. Now, the next thing or the next part of this billboard was get to know someone who doesn't come from your social class. And that goes both ways. Number one is, of course, try to get into a conversation in a soup kitchen with a homeless person, and get in touch with their, get on board with their struggle, perhaps, or, what led them to the situation. And, there's this very famous example of this guy with a great voice. I think he was in Cleveland, where there was this homeless vet, I think, that had a very good radio presenter's voice. And there was this cop, I think, that did a video with his phone, and that went viral on YouTube, and he got a job and a new life. And it was just very uplifting. But the same goes to see that you don't necessarily want to be insanely rich. There's a lot of us that dream about that. But once you're confronted with the reality, and more often than not, superficiality in this world of the rich and Seamus, it's like, it's not necessarily something that I would want for my life. Of course, as a juvenile, you grow up exposed to these superstars, and you want to be them, and you want to be rich, and have all the money in the world and whatever. But at the end of the day, these people have totally different issues that I wouldn't want in my life, right? And so in that sense, I think that's where it is right, in that this billboard ends in saying, this is how you see the world, and this is how you grow. And I think, with that being said, this is how you see the world. It's not about actually traveling there, but getting inspired by what different cultures are doing, by what different age groups have experienced. All of these people that have been exposed to the gruesome World War II are now dying off, and are going to be unable to warn us of, sliding into similar situations. And so that's, something that we need to preserve. And that's why I think, these multi-generational things are insanely important. And most importantly, though, by taking in all of this information and not ridiculing someone for being from a different country, or making them responsible for the fact that they are a refugee in Europe, rather than the true reason for the refugee crisis being that all of the Western politicians didn't have the balls to resist this NATO movement, to take out the leaders of these otherwise unstable countries. That this insight really lets you grow. In that sense, I wish you a successful day and a good night. If you haven't, make sure to share this episode with friends and family who, maybe want to grow, or are, someone who you think could personally excel by this information. Subscribe to the podcast, because every subscriber counts, and we have loads of good shit published meanwhile, and we're running with big steps toward episode 100. I'm totally psyched about that, actually. Peace out, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye now.